I see Elana is here and waiting. So why don't we dive in? You know what? I'll present for Elana. All right. Let me get that going and then bring her in. Because you put some stuff in there, right?
Yeah, I put a bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah.
Hey there,
Elana.
Hello. Is my sounding okay?
Sounds great.
Sounds great.
Okay, good. We moved my podcasting setup from one room to a different room, so
right,
it works.
Yeah, I have the same mic.
It's like the only mic.
it's
the best for podcasts.
It's actually Tom's mic, but somehow I ended up with it, and I'm not giving it back.
He's not giving it back.
And then I bought another one and lent it to Lois. So
there you go.
It's all about
the best. They're the best. They really are. They're great.
You just got to get it on the suspended stand because the desk stand it's hollow, and I hadn't realized that was the problem. My brother now produces my podcast, and he's like, I know why you're having that problem.
Yes,
and he sent me this arm.
Right.
It's all very.
That's right. I have been looking at that because, it's there's lots of drumming going on. So right. And then there's a cat.
And another cat yelling. Yeah.
It's Kirby's cat. Jumped out of the window.
She's got a Jack Kirby related name. She's Dinosaur, and she's a bit of a devil.
So nice. That's great. All right. I am gonna I'm clicking things. What am I doing? I'm gonna share the screen, and so I'll make that go away.
I love the tagline, by the way. It's fun because it's live.
Do I think hard about these things? No, it just comes out, and then I'm like, that's really dumb. I'm just going to use it.
I have no time for this.
I have no time for this.
Do you want to explain who Elana is, and can you give us your background? And
sure. Meet me. I can. Yes. Hi, I'm Elana Levin. I am the host of the Graphic Policy Radio podcast, where comics and politics meet. And while the show, we are generally speaking covering contemporary comics, I did just do a throwback episode talking about Ann Nocenti and JRJR's Daredevil. But usually I'm along the lines of interviewing contemporary comics writers and artists about their work and having roundtables around comics, adjacent media, and comics. But I also am a huge Jack Kirby fan, huge fan of the museum, and I've written about Kirby. Most recently, written about OMAC actually on the website Shelf Dust, which I think is why you wanted me to talk about OMAC today. And I'm always excited to talk about OMAC.
I think we've talked about OMAC in the past, and then I was just wandering around and I saw that you sent me a DM in Twitter. You're like, my OMAC piece is online. I'm like, that's perfect. she's got recent OMAC action, so I thought that was appropriate. So
excellent.
Yeah, we love OMAC. So it's
So why OMAC though? Why? I mean, I know you like Big Barda and Fourth World and all that.
My first exposure to OMAC was a random one-off joke in Bizarro Comics that DC did back in I don't know, was it the late 90s or the early 2000s? But like the splash page that was like one man Army Corps. It struck me as apparently hilarious. Later, when I saw the cover of OMAC #1, and I think the cover of OMAC #1 is one of the most memorable and amazing covers of any comic. And I actually, when I was doing Shelf Dust's like rank the top 50 #1 comics of all time, OMAC #1 is one of my top #1 issues of all time.
Wow.
Like, this comic works as a complete story, and it's extremely just prescient. Like, we all know Jack Kirby is constantly developing work where you're like, this was written when and by who? But like, this is extremely feminist comic coming out in the early 70s by a dude. And like, as always, his science fiction sensibilities are so prescient. But what I just love is like, what better physical depiction of the commodification of women is like this box of a woman with the legs here, her head and mouth where her crotch should be as the receptive oracle, clearly of the dick of the viewer. We can say that, right? And I'm just like, this is powerful. And this super stark cover with the head, a startling look into the world that's coming. I'm like, oh my God, I really hope not. But he's got some conviction behind it. So this cover is just, it is going to strike you immediately. And then I read the comic and I was not disappointed. So.
Right. Yeah. And just to be a little Kirby archivist action,
I love it.
There it is. Like that's what he delivered. And that's what they turned it into.
Did he do the ink there? Like, do we know?
Mike Rayer inked it there.
Yeah, Rayer
inked there as well.
Yeah. But it's just they statted it, they flipped it, they pasted it up. But that is what he wanted the cover to be. And he for all intents and purposes, I mean, he kind of got it in a way, but it's cool. It's cool to see that, a startling look. So here we go. Yeah.
One Man Army Corps.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, it's a story that it's sort of amazing that it's jumping in the end when it's such a Twilight Zone sort of secret reveal kind of thing. Like, so many comics would have done this with the reveal of what Lila's deal is being at the end. Like, it would have been sequential, and it was an interesting choice to jump right in with this reveal of like, no, like what you're about to see ends in this.
Right. Yeah.
And for a number issue one of a comic, like, this will sell it because this is just going to be jaw dropping. And I just love like the completely literal, straightforward, like looking at this female body commodified in a box made of parts. Yeah. And the entire concept of build a friend, it's like, you've invented sex robots.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, I don't have a problem with sex robots. I have a problem with treating people like robots. But like, I was like, it's just so amazing. So yeah, I enjoy OMAC in general. Like, issue 2 and 3 are really great. Obviously, the ending is not what anybody was planning for. No. But issue number 1 really stands up for me. I think is one of the best single issue comics of all time. So
I just find it so amazing that they allowed, like the editors and everyone allowed this. It's just so radical to me when I saw it the first time. Just like, I can't believe they actually published this.
Yep. It's. I mean, it's all supposed to be. It takes you back. It's taken aback. Like, this is upsetting. Let me think about why. But yeah, like the bodies coming out of the boxes, this splash page with the women tumbling out, their different contemporary hairstyles and like the different outfits. I fucking love it. And OMAC just being like, no, you have to evacuate right now. None of you know who I am. That's fine. Like,
yeah.
We talked about it when I was last on the stream with you guys, but the OMAC character design of the costume is so good.
It is. The mohawk and all. I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Like I don't think anyone is going to ever do a good OMAC story again, but people won't stop fucking around with it because the costume is so cool. They don't want to. It's too cool to let go.
Yeah. I guess it's for him in that era at that time. Stepford Wives might have been the touchstone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good call. Yeah. This issue like is super thinking about privatization of cities by billionaires. I have pieces from this issue of OMAC as my banner on Twitter, ELANA_Brooklyn, as my banner on Twitter, like constantly, because I'm just like, oh my God, OMAC and class war, let's bring it. Yep. Because this is all about like rich people deciding that they own the city and doing whatever the hell they want. And I'm just like, this is all about Mike Bloomberg, isn't it? I love it. I mean, it's not, because before that, but Kirby knew that someday Michael Bloomberg would be mayor of New York.
That's right.
And like, so,
this is issue number 2, just for those who know.
Oh, this one. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And like going right into that right away, like from issue 1 being about sexism and women's emotional labor. And like, I mean, to be clear, like the reason Buddy Blank sucks is because he can't tell the difference between a robot woman who's programmed to be subservient to him and an actual woman he interacts with, which is one of those, buddy, this is why you're single. Kind of things.
Exactly.
Like he couldn't tell that Lila was a robot and not an actual person. And like, don't treat women like that. They're not here to just tell you how great they are. That's not the purpose. Yeah. So anyway, issue 1 is all about sexism and like the commodification of women and women's emotional labor. Issue 2 is all about rich people deciding that they own the city of the future and are going to risk people's lives. And, just like, some crackles. Didn't Kirby say he was a Roman helmet? Yeah, I think it's like a centurion's helmet is what it reminds me of for sure. Centurion's helmet.
That's right.
But yeah, like, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, and issue 2 is just like all about class warfare. And there's lots of stuff on that throughout the book. I don't remember what issue it is, but it has old rich people stealing the bodies of young people to re-inhabit them. I'm like, this was just, themes that have become up in science fiction again and again. But like, this is an extremely political, topical comic book.
Yeah.
At least this is another great spot. I mean, this is a classic Kirby fight scene splash page.
Yeah.
He is unstoppable. The private security force.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And that headline, what's it say in the corner? It's like something in the age of the super rich. This is very explicitly about like rich people waging war against everyone else.
Yeah.
And, OMAC is going to fight for the justice and not be bullied by the rich. I love it.
I thought that there was one issue where they actually gave him fake parents. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I love this. They're like, you don't remember your parents anymore, so we're going to give you these fake parents. Yeah, they don't have children of their own. Like,
yeah, it's just so weird.
But it's kind of good. Like, I want people. Like, why not? Like, yeah, old people and young people make your found family. Like the whole like true. OMAC doesn't remember his own parents anymore thing is a little bit ridiculous, but sure, like why not pair people up, build new families? Yeah, Mr. Big. I mean, what a villain! Like the character design on this, the cigar smoking, the sort of Tito-esque bad guys in the background. Like, Kirby does some really interesting, compositions with the headers all throughout OMAC too. I love them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful Mike Royer display lettering there too.
His lettering for this.
He did the lettering on this, but I don't.
Deeper Sperry did the inking. Mike did the lettering.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because some of this lettering also like it reminds me of the stuff that was coming out in The Demon at the same time, but not like the Fourth World stuff at all. It's very different. It's a different style.
Yeah. Here's the pitch. Here's the presentation page that he sent to Carmine Infantino to sell the book.
Does it say the Captain America of the future on it? Does he straight up say that? Or?
I don't think so. No.
I love how like Peter Parker, the Buddy Blank is in this. Yeah. And I'm glad that they didn't go with. I'm glad that the actual Buddy Blank in the comics isn't quite that Peter Parker-ish, because I love Peter Parker and I don't love Buddy Blank and I don't want to love Buddy Blank. So I'm like, no. Because like Buddy, like I said, like Buddy Blank can't even tell that this woman who he thinks is his friend is a robot programmed to be subservient and be nice to him. So like Buddy Blank stinks. I'm perfectly fine with the fact that his entire personality got rewritten using hormones from space. When I looked at that art, I was like, Peter Parker. That's Peter Parker.
You're right.
And then the Brother Eye design is amazing.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, I mean, even references 2001. That's interesting.
I mean, the 2001 comics he did are just so jaw dropping. So I'm happy to get any piece of that I can, any way I can. That exhibit you guys did was just like really, really fabulous. I would not have ever been able to see that work that closely otherwise.
Yeah,
it was a fun show.
It was really, it was a dream come true in a way to be able to put that at the forefront of something, because it is so many people just don't give 2001 a look. I guess a lot of it is the problem is because it hasn't been reprinted. So the pleasure to put it out there like that was really cool.
I think it's the only thing that hasn't. That and Captain Victory hasn't been reprinted.
Right.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Right. What else we got?
But Buddy Blank is such a great name, though. It's perfect.
It's a great name. Yeah. It's blank. Yeah, what's this? OMAC can travel through the air by use of the Nimbus. All right. The crime cartel. What do? They kidnap,
Yep, which is
freeze,
what they
and
did.
ship human beings for brain transplants. Subway soldiers, an entire country for sale. So these are all, these are all like the issues, Subway soldiers, entire country for sale, private fish, pirate fish. Fantastic.
But the subway, I mean, the issue with the subway monster, the design on that subway is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I was, I'm like, oh, future tattoo material. But I thought that issue as well, like kind of going and seeing going through New York, interacting with the hoodlums, quote unquote. I don't even remember the character's name, like Rusty or something. Yeah, I'm not, I get why the comic wasn't the number one hit, but it's such an interesting science fiction story. Like, and
definitely great flourish at DC National. That's for sure. I mean, and just the ignominious way it was canceled. Like, you can just see how angry Kirby is in the ignominious ending of the comic. He's like, okay, now it's all covered in slag. Like, it's like, you're telling me this is the last issue, then I'm going to completely like have the most underwhelmed ending. Like, it's like acting violence against the story because of the narrative violence acted upon him. Although I don't know if you have something specific that he's said about that, but like the way he wraps up that issue is like, fuck you. Well, I mean, there's that. Yeah, that's part of the presentation. It's Buddy's got a little too much meat on him,
Yeah.
But it's a great OMAC
great composition.
Yeah, thanks Tom for putting it in. Oh yeah, okay. This is kind of the film thing.
He's like watching. This is the movie he's watching in the bed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got his Google glasses on.
Has his Oculus VR thing on in this movie scene.
Yep, Oculus VR on, watching a movie. Then he gets to meet his parents. I love
the end.
The whole relationship between Brother Eye is so interesting to me because, like I said, it's inspired by Hal, but also it's like a reference to Big Brother. Big Brother is not a positive thing, and so I've always been kind of curious, like, how does Kirby want us to perceive of Brother Eye? Because, like, intrinsically, I'm going to be like, okay, well, it's a satellite in space that acted upon Buddy Blank's body non-consensually and can do anything, see everything. It does not sound like your friend. Like, it sounds like, police state, futuristic, omnipotent police state.
Yeah.
But we never really get to get as much into that as I wish we could, because we got canceled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Help me, I'm stranded on this rock.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a Dr. Scuba. Dr. Scuba, what a strange but creative science fiction. Like, I'm going to take all the ocean and mush it into bars.
Right. Yeah. Then he has that special thing to lift up that heavy thing. All the oceans, it must weigh crazy amount of weight.
It's very out there. And I love the like angry hipster daughter.
Yeah.
She's like, has a lot of attitude and that villainous. But
here we go.
It's the last page. And it looks like he was actually planning something in the last panel for the next issue, but never happened.
Yeah. Dr. Scuba must now kill Buddy Blank. Brother Eye must now save OMAC. The stakes are man's survival.
Yeah, as an anti-Buddy Blank person, I'm like, I don't want Buddy Blank to go do heroic stuff. I want him to just like Buddy Blank is turning down, kicking a dummy in the butt kicking room, and he's turning down the screaming room. Like, I'm just like, get rid of Buddy, bring back OMAC. Like,
that's right.
I this is not someone I want to see succeed in their powerless mode, because I'm just never going to forgive his conduct in issue 1. What can I say?
Right.
So.
Right. this is I think Lee that that was something that Jack was looking for, was for someone, on I think Bruce Barry was on the West Coast, so he was so happy having Mike Royer inking and lettering that he wanted inking and lettering also, as on the, so that was part of the deal of what it was to work for Jack when he was at DC. He didn't want to have to deal with too many people. That's great. Yeah, so that's the Goofy, the real ending that we didn't get to see.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it till you shared that.
Yeah, we don't have the original art or anything.
But no, we don't. We have
the last issue's cover isn't even by Jack. It's
right, because that was
Kirby,
and it's and it's like, oh yeah, this is Kuber.
No, it was just one of those things where, like, when we looked at the Kirby X numbers that he would use for billing purposes, when he would deliver things to DC cross country, they would have these numbers. All the editors had these numbers, and so it was just their accounting numbers. And the covers were definitely done, could be months after the story. So that's like, he did the story, and normally he would do the story, and then maybe they would come back to him with a suggestion for the cover. And instead they were like, well, your contract's over and we've got Joe Kubert here, so we'll get him to do it.
Which is such a different style.
I know.
I guess it's better for it to be, on balance, I'd rather it be clearly Joe Kubert, like, doing his thing, than somebody trying to make it look like Kirby and obviously, like, failing and everything being very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So, in the end, but yeah, one of the other sort of fun things about the comic is just like how resolutely hippie era, basically all the outfits in the future are, as well as like the specifics of like the kids and the teenagers and their like conflict with the older people. And, as always, like, Jack's on team young people, and it's you gotta love him for it. But like the folks hanging out in that hologram arcade, it's like these are contemporary young people, basically.
Yeah.
I have to wonder if he had kept around Rusty or whatever his name is. I'm trying to look up his name. The young hoodlum who, like, he brings with him to go and save the day. I feel like that might have developed into being like a sidekick for him in the future, perhaps. I don't know.
Right.
But this is definitely a comic that really doesn't like rich people, and I'm here for it. So. And I guess the whole concept of an ocean stealer as well is sort of like hogging natural resources. Like, even if his reasons for doing so aren't necessarily like, because I'm overfishing the oceans to make profits in sea, like fish or whatever. It's still like, it's ecological destruction. It's an ecological villain.
Right. So we were.
I don't know.
We were in the when we were talking with Tommy earlier, we were talking about Steve Rude from Nexus. A big Kirby guy. So this is a Steve Rude inked version of that OMAC piece.
Oh, neat!
Isn't that cool? That has not been shared with a lot of. I haven't shared that a lot, but that's something that Steve inked for us and donated to us.
That's really cool.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, it's really cool. So,
are people? Is that going to be for sale or something? Or
maybe someday. Not tonight.
Okay, noted.
But that was definitely the intent. Was like, Steve, could you do this for us? We could use it for fundraising. So yeah, at some point that might
that'd be fun to put color to it and make it into like a little print. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. That was so the Kirby Museum spent a weekend. I spent the weekend with Steve at the Calgary Comic Expo in the Calgary Stampede, and which is the name of their convention center. And it was great. We did a panel, and it was very interesting to hear him talk about his take on Jack and his personal encouragement to other people to express themselves as inspired by what Jack Kirby would inspire people to do. You have your own stories. Don't tell Captain America stories. Tell your own stories. That's how you're going to get anywhere, was basically Jack Kirby's thing. So it's interesting to look at him as a science fiction guy, because he was, right? I mean, Kirby was just absolutely caught when he was a kid, by the pulp science fictions, the science fiction pulps, and the visuals that were on those covers of those pulps. And I mean, we've talked about it already, but it's still like what's here now, but what's Jack think about 30 years in the future and stuff like that. And it's amazing to look at the super rich and Dr. Scuba
renting out a city for their own private hunting party.
It's just like he's just great, just totally I don't know, prescient. I don't know whether
prescient is totally the right word. I mean, you're going to invent the iPhone,
right? I mean, he's looking at Scientific American and National Geographic and Life and even science journals and so on, but still it's like that's what he comes up with for his comic book.
And that's one of the things that I connected with when I saw his art. Like, I grew up going to the natural history museums in DC all the time, and so looking and seeing the very clear influence of art from Latin America and from the Oceania, Polynesia, and being like, I see that in this. So that, and those connections really just got me really interested in it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's OMAC is we did our series on the Demon. We did the Fourth World. We're definitely we were like in the middle of our live stream video stuff. It's like, let's put out a poll on Twitter, and it was. People came back. They want more 70s DC. They want Dingbats and OMAC. So
I'm like, 70s DC is my shit. So
issue by issue, page by page. So maybe we'll have you back, and we could just go through OMAC like that. Yeah.
I mean, and if anybody wants to hear me just talk specifically about Buddy Blank and what's up with that, sorry. Shelf Dust has a series called Infinite Crisis, Infinite Crisis and Infinite Crisis. And it's basically they're having different people like myself, experts, submit answers to questions that one would have reading the series. And one of the leading questions was, so is OMAC Buddy Blank at the time of Infinite Crisis? And I'm like, oh, I'm here to tell you why that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
And they're like, oh yeah, bring it on. Feel free to negate the entire premise of this, Elana. I'm like, great. So if folks want to hear me talk about why Buddy Blank himself is not, I mean, that's what's so brilliant about the comic is Kirby understands how loathsome and terrible this particular Nebbish is. And the thing is Jack Kirby does a wonderful sympathetic Nebbish too, right? Sure. Steve Rogers, just because someone is physically weak doesn't mean they're not wonderful. It's not about that. It's not about that at all.
Right.
But the point of OMAC is that it's totally okay to completely rewrite his personality with that of a super being, because you're not losing anything. He's a blank. He's
a blank.
He's a void, And so when people have tried to do stories with OMAC since then, where they're like, Buddy Blank is Commandy's father. I'm like,
yeah.
Is he though?
No.
Because I think the whole point is he's nobody, actually.
Right.
I think the whole point is he's nobody. So yeah, I'm happy. If folks want to check that out on Shelf Dust, would love to.
Shelf Dust. Okay. I have a thing about OMAC that just kind of sits on my shoulder until it'll get resolved. So there was the movie maker John Sayles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I bought a book. I read an interview. He actually used to live 5 blocks from me here in Hoboken. but one of the things that he talked about was how there was a thing in Hollywood about directors of movies being like generals of an army corps, and that he wanted to. John Sayles didn't believe in that, like that. He was, it was more a team of equals, and the way he wanted to treat the people who he made movies with. And I was like, wait a minute. Jack was a Hollywood, he really wanted to work in Hollywood, and there was a lot of Hollywood stuff.
Movies, yeah.
And I'm like, did he catch on to that like one-man Army Corps thing because somebody said something about a director of a movie, and that Jack Kirby sitting at a drawing table is like a one-man Army Corps? That's all I got.
That's interesting.
Isn't that fun?
Well, somebody else, something else is like the whole OMAC, like Women Army Corps, like an army of one was like Marvel and the U.S. military have so much in common, actually. But, the U.S. military slogan, "Army of One," which I kind of didn't realize like that was like a more recent thing, but it is. So
yeah,
they're copying his framing, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's just a thing that like it sits around with me every once in a while regarding OMAC, and I try to do a little, every once in a while I'll go in the hole and I'll try to find something more about that I feel like John Sayles opened the door for me about Hollywood culture and making movies, but I haven't found anything.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. Because that's the thing. Like, for Jack with comics, right? It was always like, what I can draw with a pencil, they can't make with their movies, right? I mean, up until recently with CGI, that was the truth. And
I still think that things look better flat. And I recognize that like partially this is, these are my aesthetics as someone who grew up before 3D animation was like a thing, right. But just to me, it just doesn't look that beautiful.
Right.
And younger people, for some reason, it looks okay to them, but I just look at it, I'm like, I like it better flat. I like my 2D animation. I like my flat shapes and things. I prefer old school coloring to the modern coloring format, and it's just the aesthetics that I have, Well,
it's like when we had our one of our guests over the birthday weekend, where who was the guy who worked at Hollywood. David. Sorry, David. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on your family name, but he was just like, look at Asgard. Why is it so boring? Yes. So it's the flat color is so much more dynamic, and Hollywood, they seem like they want to make it darker and weirder just because they think it's more real or something. I don't know.
And it's like, if we wanted real, I would watch a documentary.
I know.
Yes. There's really good ones, actually. I don't need to. But I one last thought about Jack Kirby designs. I'm like literally in the middle of editing in the next episode of my podcast, which is about the Venture Brothers cartoon. Speaking of 2D animation,
sure.
And our listeners were like, "What episode do you want us to cover?" And they wanted us to cover the episode that's particularly full of Jack Kirby visuals, which is 20 Years Till Midnight, where you have the Grand Inquisitor, who is like an Eternal. Basically, It's like an Eternal shows up in this animated show, and so I found myself in the reverse situation of trying to explain. And is trying to explain that to an audience of people who know this other animated show and who love these particular aesthetics, but who might not know Kirby's work. So flipping it around here, but it's a Oh, so Crackles put on the comment, it's not just flat color, it's about the limited number of colors. Yeah, I agree. Right. Having the limited palette is also kind of gives you a specific aesthetic to lean from. That's not to say that, like, there are times when I look at an old comic and I'm like, that purple is ugly. And I know you wish that wasn't the only purple you had. But I think at some point in time in the Bronze Age, they kind of had enough colors to capture it all without having like the complete freedom to make everything become muck.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't want to be like coloring peaked in the year 1983,
No, don't do that.
but like, and maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm terrible. Like all my colorist friends are like, Elana, you're terrible. Never talk to me again. But like, look, I recognize that this isn't a product of like an objective, what is good and what is bad. Like, there's a reflection of the aesthetics that I have as someone who consumed art from a circular time period, and that's what resonates with me.
Sure.
Someone else, do you like Thor? Did I like Thor Ragnarok, the movie? I did enjoy it, and there were glimpses within it that were, like visually Kirby referencing enough for me to be happy about it. But the aesthetic wasn't what made the movie for me ultimately. Like that was not the best part of it. The storyline was really good. It was a great critique of colonialism. I'm like, this is a movie all about how colonialism is poison, and becoming a diaspora nation. I have feelings about this. I'm Jewish, so so I enjoyed the movie a lot, but and the aesthetics were like there enough for me to not be like belly aching about it. Yeah. But it's not like what I would want her to do if I was in control, if that makes sense when it comes to some of the visuals. Yeah.
Well, they completely greased the wheel for me when Taika Waititi posted the image of the galactic head helmet that the costume designer built in 3D and wore. Like, really? Like, that's how much you're into Kirby that you're going to ask your costume designer to make the galactic head helmet? Okay. So there was a lot of visual fun stuff going on there. For at least they tried to make it as crazy as Kirby stuff,
Yeah, the enthusiasm was definitely there. You have some rainbow bridge stuff happening.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's one of the better Marvel movies for sure. And
sure. Yeah.
I can definitely say that.
Yeah.
I did cover it on the podcast, so if people want to hear me talk about it at length, you can look up Graphic Policy Radio covering Thor Ragnarok. So.
Well, this has been great, and I think I really appreciate your coming by and responding to last minute things. You said you had something else and you moved something, so it's just great. It's always a pleasure.
I'm always happy to hang out with my fellow Kirby fans, and as you know, I love the museum. Everybody go
buy our t-shirts.
My art back there. Give them all your money. Give them all your money. I'll see you guys. I'll keep watching.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay. All right. So that was great. Yeah, Alana's always fun. She came to that first pop-up and it was like, oh, she's got Kirby tattoos. All right. Let's keep talking. What else is going on? Yeah, no, it's really fun. Really
it
fun.
Was. Yeah.
I am gonna look up that Taika Waititi galactic head thing. Just for kicks. Let's see if there it is. Oh my god. Come on. All right, I gotta share my screen here. That's amazing. Come on.
It's crazy.
Come on, Taika. You got to send that thing to us. We need to have it in the Kirby Museum.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Not crazy.
It's really well done.
It's really well done. Oh man, I complimented the person, R.A. Vincent, as well, the person who made it. That is just so cool. Yeah. So always a pleasure to talk to Elana. She's always got some good things to say.